talking about, is my mic on? Yes, okay. We're talking about safe and seamless travel, not a new concept, but one that has importance beyond just the pandemic. We have a great panel today from different aspects of the travel industry, hotels, airports, new technology in terms of clearance. So please welcome my panelists. They're going to walk out on the stage now. Sean Donohue, the CEO of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. Sean. Kelly Craighead, the CEO of CLIA. Kelly, where are you? You're just coming up. You can applaud, that's okay. Jose Ricardo Botelho, the CEO of ALTA, and I'll explain what that is when he gets up here. Here he comes. Ewald, where are you? From the Bakuta and Tara Resort in Aruba. A very interesting story to tell. Clear. Are you coming up? There you go. Come on up, guys. I'm going to sit over there. You know, when Brian Chesky was talking about human connection, you guys are all about also the process of connection and the technical aspects of it as well. Yesterday in our Global Leaders Dialogue, we were talking about the process of connection as well. We're talking about airlift and airports. And one of the things that we discussed was that before 9/11, airports were not really developed or designed or capable of dealing with the security needs post 9/11 in a physical way and then in a technical way. And then the question becomes now, are they developed and designed for dealing with a public health issue like the pandemic? I don't know if you've had the same experience that I have, but I don't have a problem getting on a plane today. I know that their air circulation systems are fabulous. They take out more than 99.4% of the particulates and the bacteria. So for me, that's not an issue. Friends are saying to me, yeah, but what do you do about the airport? What's going on about the airport? And what's interesting about that is Sean Donohue, who's the CEO of DFW, which, by the way, is now the largest, biggest airport in the United States, surpassing Atlanta. You were baking some technology into the system before the pandemic.
We were, Peter, and thanks for teeing that up, and good afternoon, everybody. We have been on a journey at DFW for about 3 years, working with many partners on biometrics. We believe biometrics gives us, and most importantly, provides our customers facilitation benefits that have now become almost an imperative as we recover from the pandemic. And let me give you a couple examples. In working with U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, we now have technology. If you arrive on an international flight at DFW, the biometrics actually is your boarding document. It's your arrival document. You don't have to show your passport when you go through immigrations and customs. It's always good to have it, obviously, but that becomes the mechanism to clear you through immigrations and customs. For about 2 years, we've been using biometrics to board all of our international flights. You don't have to give a boarding pass. You don't even have to use your mobile boarding pass. And now we're testing when customers check in. As we all know, it's very easy to get a mobile boarding pass, but we are testing technology using biometrics that allows you to self-check your bag without any involvement from an airline employee. So those type of technologies, Peter, were always on our radar screen. We were starting to work with them, but as I said, now they've become an absolute priority.
Of course, you can call me old school, but I'm the kind of guy that every time I see a kiosk, I run, because I like the idea of human connection and conversation. Are you displacing that?
We're not trying to displace, because you're right, the human connection is still important, but what we've seen is the employees who are in these jobs where they have to facilitate now have the ability to be far more flexible. They don't have to be so robotic. They don't have to have their head down in a computer. It provides them the opportunity actually to engage even better with the customer.
Now, when the pandemic hit, we had one particular state in the United States, Hawaii, that closed down. America's only island state. They made it very difficult to get there. They were looking for some sort of a centralized set of standards to get people cleared to go. Obviously, one of the most popular destinations in the U.S. Andrew Wingrove from Clear, you guys came up with a process in partnership with the state.
Indeed.
To try to figure out a way to get people not only cleared to the first island, but maybe actually to all the islands.
Yes. First off, Peter, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Clearing customers is nothing new to us, and creating frictionless and safe journeys is core to what we are at Clear.
And it's biometrics as well.
As a biometric company as well, yeah. And so clearing tens of millions of consumers through airports, we knew that when the pandemic hit, the next question would be, how do you raise that game with health insights? And so we've been working on a health pass credential for over a year. We have ambassadors and our customers at our lanes, and then we immediately put our heads down to building that health. So we've been working with the state of Hawaii now for about 6 months to create a red light, green light system that enables their safe travels portal to be that much easier for consumers. If y'all are not,
and by the way, earlier this afternoon I was talking to the
Yes.
Minister of Tourism of Greece. They've come up with a digital document.
Indeed.
Right? Yours is essentially a digital document.
Ours is a digital document as well, correct. But the most important thing is we're interoperable with their system, because they're not just measuring your health insights, but where you're staying for tracing purposes and the like. And so what we're working on with the state is not only to provide the red light, green light, but push into their system. And then what we're thinking about from there is how do we also create that interoperability to hotels, cruise lines, and more. Because if just look at checking in for yesterday here at this conference, where we created credentials when we checked in with our tests. And as you look forward, and as it's been noted with more of us being vaccinated, how do we share that credential seamlessly and safely?
Now, of course, in Hawaii, there's still a physical piece of equipment that's involved. It's that wristband, correct?
It's the wristband, correct.
Explain how that works.
Yeah, so for customers that are traveling to the state of Hawaii, they can either take a test from one of the 34 trusted testing partners that the state has established, or they can use the thousands of providers that are available through Clear. And from there, they link their testing provider account to Clear. We ask the testing provider, has this person taken a test within the prescribed period, which for Hawaii is 72 hours? Yes, it's within 72 hours. Yes, it's a PCR test. And
There's going to come a time, whether it's the technology that Sean is using or the technology that you're using, where in the entire travel experience, once we get to a destination or even on our hometowns,
Right.
we'll be using that technology to go to the dry cleaners, the grocery store, the movie theater, et cetera.
You bring up a great point. We're actually working with over 50 sports teams around the United States to power safe and easy access to the venues as well. Just this weekend, we had over 15,000 attendees. A sporting event in Florida that had over 10,000 attendees.
And in Florida and Texas, how many were wearing masks? I just had to ask.
I'm talking
You don't want to
about,
answer that question, do you?
Indeed. But the important thing to know is that we're building an interoperable platform that will work across a variety of industries. Because we believe, just like you, that it'll be incorporated in everyday life. And so our goal is not to create an all-encompassing health pass credential for every single venue, but one that creates an interoperable one that can plug and play, whether it be for cruise lines, for airline, and more.
Based on the standards of those entities.
Correct.
I got it.
And that seamless integration will enable you as a consumer, just like you log in with Google or log in with Facebook, to provide some credentials.
In his last piece was customer expectation. What are people going to be looking for as an authentic, genuine experience? And of course, the word sustainable. And that brings me up to Ewald here in the island of Aruba. I remember talking to your former prime minister about 4 or 5 years ago, who said to me that their goal was to be completely fossil fuel free for the entire island in just a couple of years. You're already doing that.
That is true. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real honor to be here. my illustrious colleagues. Yes, Aruba did announce that by 2020 we'll be 100% green, and that did not succeed. However, the present government is intending to eliminate fossil fuels by the year 2030.
I should also say, initially they were going to go solar,
Yes.
and that didn't exactly work out.
Well, they did part solar. They do about 5% of the local consumption solar, but they realized that to provide the whole island with panels with enough power would take half of the island. So they actually then switched to wind power, and they installed 12 turbines, and they're in the plan of adding another, I believe it's 24 or so. And that will then produce about 60 or 70% of the total consumption. And they're determined for various reasons. One is, of course, safety. The other one is foreign exchange. At this moment, the island is exporting millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to purchase oil. And the wind and solar is free. And there are investors that are willing to put up the equipment, and you just purchase it at a discount from them. So we're looking forward to that happening.
Now, that's just on the island, but your resort itself.
Well, my resort, and again, there's a colleague here from Dallas Airport. We were the recipients of an award from the WTTC a few years ago, and then just recently became carbon neutral as a hotel in 2018. And it's been rewarding, and I see that the future and people look for sustainability, they look for health and safety, and the other thing they also will look forward to is a seamless travel, and we are combining all of these things in our resort. We actually provide our customers with a guilt-free vacation. And we put it in so many words. We say, look, staying at home and taking a car and driving, I don't know, to Disney World, your emissions are about 100% higher than if you would take a flight from New York to Aruba, spend a week in my hotel, which is super green, and then fly home, and you've spent half of that footprint that you would have spent in your car going to Florida. And Aruba is on the bandwagon to become as green as it can possibly be.
Well, right? And so here we are in a resort complex here with over 4,000 or nearly 4,000 rooms. Does anybody here even think when you flush the toilet, where does it go? Does anybody think that? Well, people started to think about that.
Yes.
I remember when ecotourism was becoming the buzzword, and they would put that little plastic card on your bed saying, please help us save the environment by not washing your towels, I used to laugh at the fact that the card was plastic. But forgetting that, they once gave me a tour of the hotel laundry. That's when I got it. When I saw the process of what it took to wash the towel, I said, count me in. So I guess the real question is, for all of us here, you know, what steps are you taking? Sean, you're doing that at the airport, I know, in terms of the environment. I mean, the toxic fluids that are contained at an airport are disposal, it's management, right?
It is, and it's how you dispose of the liquids. Like, think about glycol from de-icing airplanes. And we are extraordinarily careful. We work with partners, so we break down those components so they don't damage the environment. And it's very costly. It takes a lot of time. It's very complex. That's why you know, we're the largest carbon neutral airport in the world, and we're proud of that. And who would have ever thought an airport in Texas would have that moniker?
But then that brings up the point is, as we emerge from COVID-19 and we have a new recognition or even a connection with public health issues that go beyond the virus, that becomes a marketing tool for you. That becomes a marketing tool for EWAL.
It does, and I would say, you know, my wife and I have 5 kids from 19 to 30. Young people pay attention to this. When we promote within the airport that we're carbon neutral, the young people get it, and they really do pay attention to that. And I actually believe older people like myself are starting to pay more attention to it as well. And we're not activists. We're practical about this at DFW, but we understand we've got a huge responsibility. And we've got a passion and a commitment, and we've got a wonderful team that has delivered on all of the goals and objectives we've set out there.
Now, at DFW, of course, is the consumer dynamic of moving people from A to B to C. I get that. But Jose, you're all about the rest of that aviation, putting equipment, planes, crews. What's changed for you?
With the COVID,
Yeah.
I would tell you, it changed a lot. First of all, thank you very much for this invitation, Gloria. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys. And it's an honor for ALTA to be here with you to explain a little bit about our process. Since the first beginning, I believe that it is important to understand what happened since the first beginning, since the first wave, because for the first time ever in 22 years work with government and private sector, I would say that was the first time that I saw actually all together in a table to try to find a way out. And that in our sector came to under the umbrella of the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. So we've been there all together and try to find and try to avoid lose the connection in our region, in Latin American countries. That unfortunately we saw some quarantines or some unnecessary rules, and that had a huge impact in the sector. So still now we have been working and advocating with the government and try to say, okay, let's reopen, let's resume, because we have protocols, solid protocols, actually it's concrete. And if we are here today, it's because these protocols they work it. So this is very important for us. And
Give me an example of some of the protocols that you initiated.
Since the first beginning, when you go to that, I mean, again, when you talk about this CART document that was made in the first wave of the COVID, the idea was, okay, if you go to the airport, which protocol do you have? So ACI was there to say to the government, okay, we can do this, this, and this. And also the government said, the whole government said, okay, it's okay if you go for this way. When you go to the cabin, what is the protocol? And here I'd like to bring something that is very important to understand. Since the first beginning, Peter, we had a huge problem with misinformation. like we felt that the people was a little bit afraid about the air in the cabin, but it's very important to understand that the air in the cabin is changed each 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, 100% of that, and especially with the filters that we have in the aircraft. So the protocol that was made for that, and the idea was to give confidence to the people to come back. And that's why all the time we have been saying that it's important to avoid quarantines and also to give some unnecessary tests at the arrival, because otherwise no one's gonna travel because you are afraid to come back to your country. So this is the process that we have been working a lot for since the first.
Many of my own listeners and viewers will repeat it to me that cruise ships are floating petri dishes. And yet, stage who can say something that nobody else can say, you can literally you can move your assets, and you've done it.
That's right.
Right? You've repositioned your ships to foreign ports, so you're not going to be sailing at this moment from any to U.S. port, and that includes the Bahamas, Bermuda, Greece, Iceland, the United Kingdom, Israel, St. Martin, and I'm probably running out of a few. So your challenge, of course, and everybody here has a challenge, right? But your challenge, of course, is to say, we're going to sail because we've met those standards, and then you've gone one step further, which is, it's one thing for Sean to say it's carbon neutral, that's great, right? But people are still asking about long lines at the airport. I get that, and I'm going to come back to that. But in your situation, most of your members now are requiring all crew to be vaccinated, all officers to be vaccinated, and all passengers to be vaccinated. So the question is, and it's a rhetorical question, so bear with me, if you have 100% vaccine compliance, have you now become the safest place to be?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you to Gloria and the whole team at WTTC for not only inviting me, but giving such a great opportunity for all of my cruise colleagues and port partners to be part of this, because this is an extreme in terms of the ability to move our assets is true. The other thing that's true that's important for governments to understand is just our unique ability to create a safe experience, from our partnerships with our air carriers, to the airports, to the ports and terminal operators, to the ability on the ships, and then of course partnership with the destinations themselves. And so one of our, I think, is to take that challenge and really be able to promote to the consumer the confidence that you'll have this kind of higher bar set than expectations of assurance, which our lawyer never likes me to say, but that assurance that you are going to be in a setting that has been enhanced completely as a result of all the learnings that have happened after this pandemic.
And so can you give me some examples where you've repositioned those ships, where that level of confidence has returned, not just in terms of passengers, but because we know there's a pent-up demand. We know that. I mean, for those of you who may not be aware, one cruise line a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Silver Sea, put on their grand expensive ticket on the ship was $74,000, and it sold out. So there is demand. But what about the concern of ports, concerns of individual governments? Because as you were saying, Jose, everybody's operating in a silo.
That's right. Well, I mean, in places where there is communication and collaboration with the governments and with the health authorities, and that the measures that are being taken are based in science and they're very prescriptive step by step. So all the places that you mentioned, plus Malta, plus Croatia, plus Singapore, more and more markets are opening up, and because, as you said, demand is so great, the thing that everyone should know is that cruisers love to cruise. So they will go where the cruise ships are, and it is, again, about that partnership with the government and with the health authorities. So where you see coordination and collaboration and communication between the industry and governments, you'll see to where you can have that ability to responsibly resume operations.
And last summer, of course, some of those operations did resume overseas in Europe. You had the European cruise lines start test cruises, et cetera. And now it's a situation to see how fast things are going to move in the wake of the European Union decision yesterday to let Americans who are vaccinated come to 27 different countries. I'm assuming you're smiling about that.
Yes, I think everybody in this room might be smiling about is how long it takes to stand up a ship, and from how many countries are crew coming, and how does the processing of information and kind of the mechanics around the logistics start to work together. You know, what I think is then particularly challenging is the situation then in the United States, which is the largest cruise market, is responsible for half the people who take a cruise, and the challenge that it presents to U.S., you know, by not sailing from U.S. ports, you don't have that benefit of being a home port, of having your passengers come early or stay late, and to stay in hotels and to go shopping and to eat out at restaurants and to see that all move offshore, because we are you know, not having the same level of urgency to solve this challenge that the Europeans actually were able to do so well with our EU Healthy Gateways framework that enabled the success. But I think one misnomer is that the conditional sale order is up in November. It's reevaluated in November unless it is modified or lifted before then. So that's really where we're spending a lot of energy right now.
Although if you're looking at this as a numbers game, just from the American market, about 3.8 million Americans are being vaccinated every day. That means every 9 days. That's the equivalent of the number of Americans who cruised in 2019.
From an economic standpoint, because we have gotten our arms around the public health issue, because there are some of the most stringent protocols in place to be able to take a cruise, because we were the first industry to require 100% testing of both passengers and crews, and that'll remain an important element of the protocols that we use. So truly, as we race to reassemble ourselves, it really, a driver is going to be the number of Americans who are flying elsewhere to take a cruise.
Exactly. You know, I promised Sean I was going to come back to you on this because a lot of us don't want to go back to the way it was before. What's going to happen when they start flying again? Are they going to go back to charging me for everything? Are they going to be standing in lines at the airport because there are not enough TSA agents to process the numbers? We heard earlier last month that the TSA is now going to hire about 6,000 new agents to handle what they have already looked at the numbers, right? What are you doing at DFW? And what are you going to charge? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah. Fantastic. We have sensor data at every one of our checkpoints that gives real-time line weights. And what that does is two things, Peter. When you come to an airport and you see a line, you tend to panic. Are you going to catch your flight? Are
No,
you
I
going to
actually
get through?
panic before I get to the airport, but that's okay.
In the TSA checkpoints, but also provides the facilitation. So we're working.
You come to a clean and clear environment, and if something should go wrong, you're fully insured. We will take care of you unless you want to buy additional insurance, and you can be evacuated back to home. And that assured the customer. And in fact, we are running at this moment about 40 to 50% island-wide. My particular hotel, I can brag a little bit. We're running over 90% at this moment, mostly repeat business demand. And the island has pulled together and has shown efforts and done everything in their power to make sure that we overcome this crisis as soon as possible.
So my last question to all of you, as we try to talk about removing the barriers to international mobility, which are starting to happen as we speak, is there's something else in there. It's the elephant in the room. It's the negative touch points that people remember. So very quickly, what are each of you doing to deal with those negative touch points in a proactive, urgent way?
On three things: technology, biometrics that simplifies and allows customers to get through the process quicker and in a more seamless manner. Number two is hygiene. Every airport in the world, every hotel, every entity is paying attention to that. What we've learned and what the data tells you is it's actually the air quality that is probably the most important thing in an airport, just like it is in an airplane. So we have spent well over $10 million outfitting the entire heating and air conditioning systems at the airport and every terminal with UV technology to kill all the germs and the viruses. And then number three is touchless. How do you make the experience as touchless as possible? And again, biometrics helps with that. But there's other, sensor technology that enables you to do that as well. So those are the three areas that we believe will really make the customer recovery as seamless as possible.
Andrew?
We're focused on three things as well. reducing friction at touch points, and making it more predictable along the way and more consistent from experience to experience. And then number 3, connected, and not having to provide the same data over and over and over at each step of the way will really bring joy back to travel.
Kelly?
Perfect to build on my colleagues. You know, we're really focused on creating what is an enjoyable guest experience despite all of the new enhanced measures, and working closely with the ports and the terminals to provide for the extra testing and screening and things has been a challenge, but is clearly building on where we've been leaders in innovation in some of these spaces with bracelets and other things in the past.
You know, when you think about it, before I get to Ewald, in hospitality, no one was ever supposed to see back of the house. Now things have changed. You want everybody to see the back of the house. Right, Ewald?
Yes, that's correct. I look at it as the future. Health, wellness, and safety and hygiene, of course, is number 1. A sustainable environment and that provides you with guilt-free travel because people don't want to damage and leave a footprint behind or a big footprint is very important. And biometrics and seamless travel provides the same, the social distance, the ease of travel, the uncomplicated things, and safety at the same time. So we're looking at a future that is bright.
Jose?
Yeah, I would say that information is everything right now for the traveler, and especially when you talk about safety. But I would add something like about safety and security, and I would like to congratulate WTTC because the SSTJ document is very, very good document, and I believe that we have the tools right now. We have the tools for safety and security, but we have to find a way right now is how to do some interoperability among all this process in order to give for the tourist, for the traveler, the seamless travel. Because actually, Peter, we are explorer. This is something that is in our nature. This is our DNA. A long time ago, we left Africa to conquer the world. In some part in the moment, the Europeans came to Americas, and this is part of us. Discover something, and we are, with COVID or without COVID, with vaccine, and thanks God that we have the vaccine, but we cannot wait for the vaccination. We have to be confident that we can travel with protocols and what is safe, but much more the bio protocols. So I believe that we have to give or provide information to avoid fear and to avoid as well unnecessary rules.
You mentioned vaccination. I'll leave you with this, that so many people think that vaccination means liberation.
Yeah.
What it really means is an extended conversation. And it's up to everybody here to continue that conversation when we leave this room. My panel, I thank you for this conversation. Please thank our panel. And before we leave, we're going to take a quick break right now. We need you back here in this room for the next panel at 4 o'clock sharp. Thank our panel again, please.